And I'd like to recognize we're on Treaty 1 land, and it's great to see my good friend Bill Shedd, who I think will be speaking after me. Bill is he's a former politician. He's cured. The former mayor of Selkirk, a good friend over many years. I was very, very fortunate to be here last year during the installation of the statue of Swami Vivekananda. It was a very auspicious occasion. Good to see you again, Doxal. And I think before then I thought it was the Beatles that had brought the Eastern philosophy to the West. But I now know, because of the good work that you were doing, that was one Swami Vivekananda. And it's just hard to believe that over 100 years ago, he was in this very building and graced us with his presence, preaching his message of peace, harmony, and unity among diversity. I think a message we should celebrate today. And I was thinking while driving here that if you were in this building 100 years ago, everybody looked like me. They didn't look like you. And it was just people of European stock. The Prime Minister likes to say old stock. And how our community has changed. And I wonder if Vivekananda was with us today. I think he would be pretty happy with what he saw. I mean, I'm from South Winnipeg. If you're from South Winnipeg, we have some 50 languages spoken. People have come from around the world to make a new home, to raise their families, to create a better life for themselves. We have a mandir in South Winnipeg. We have a synagogue. We have many churches. We have Gurdwara. We have so many spiritual traditions, which I think all speak to the divine within us, and I think Vivekananda would be very, very pleased at that. I have a long-standing interest in Hinduism. I don't know why I did this, but in my first year at university, I took an introductory course in Sanskrit. So I learned nouns, verbs, some basic grammar, I forget the rest. But I also gained a lot of insight into the scriptures, the Vedas, the Mahabharata, the Gita. For my final exam, I had to memorize the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita by heart, understand the meaning. My instructor was Professor Parameshwaran, who some of you may know from the temple. And my examiner was Professor Klostermeyer, who's a Sanskrit scholar, as some of you know. And so I had a great interest in Hinduism that took me to India. So my wife, she was my then fiance, who I asked to marry me under India Gate. So again, India has a very special place in my heart, but I gained a deeper appreciation for your traditions and learned that Hinduism is not a religion, it is a way of life, as our distinguished speaker has been saying today. And I am just so glad you are keeping your traditions alive in our country, in our city. I don't need to go to India anymore to learn about Hinduism. I have been back 3 more times, north and south. But I don't have to go to India anymore. I can learn all I need to know right from you and from our Indian community, which is growing and prospering and making such a great contribution to our community. So thank you again for the invitation today. Thank you for keeping the Vedantic tradition alive, as well as the memory of Swami Vivekananda. God bless you all. Namaskar. And I apologize, I'm going to have to take my leave. I'll stay for a few moments. Yeah.
First of all, I'd like to thank you, because I know it's busy. Not only, it's not really to express by the busy work. It's really busy. So it's 24 hours, it's thinking constantly. Canada is something, and Canada is going on. He's trying to keep up with everything. The company, his relationship, his work, his politics, his every single lot of things. It's coming like, and how much time is going to So there you go. So thank you, Terry, for inviting, for taking the invitation and being here. And thank you enough. So thanks a lot again. Next person on our talk about the Bill Shea. And Bill Shea is the chairperson of the Median Center. He's the person who helped with us like a lot. And if I start talking, we have to go back to 1983. Yeah. In 1983. And you can think about the length of time he was with Mr. Glover and his films that he would make. We can't thank enough from the Human Society to help us to reach over here where we are. I know that the length doesn't look that long or doesn't look that big, but for us, a little step is a big step, and he is one person who's been a pillar for us to support that vision and destination. Mr. Bilstead is, before he came to the Median Center, he was the Director General of the Pilgrim Affairs. And he is a great human being. He is an excellent supporter of the community. He's always there when you need him. Mr. Bilstead, please give him my name.
Can you hear me if I don't use this thing? Well, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you very briefly this afternoon and for moving me on the agenda. My wife and I are going to an event this evening, and I have to drive back to Selkirk and listen to her instructions as to what I have to do tonight. Well, it was 1993 when a delegation came from the Hindu Society of Manitoba, Winnipeg, to talk about celebrating the anniversary of Swami Vivekananda's stop here in Winnipeg. Now, it wasn't exactly this building that he stopped in, because he was here prior to this structure being built, but it was on this geographical spot that he did set his feet in Winnipeg. We have had about a 23-year association with the Society annually to mark that occasion. We've all come a long way. This center, when you first came here, was empty with the exception of maybe 50 people. The structure that you see around you didn't exist. The air conditioning wasn't here, the lighting wasn't here. That area wasn't fixed up. All of the woodwork around the area was covered up. The ceiling was not what you see today. The lighting is not what you see today. The office spaces on either side are not what you see today. That's not the only difference. Because of what we did here, other things have happened. We have built students' residences. We have taken a building that was a welding shop and converted it into an auto repair shop, and it's now a welding training shop. We've built a state-of-the-art training center next to it. The city built the Circle of Life Thunderbird House, designed by a well-known Métis architect, Douglas Cardinal. The Métis themselves purchased the other CP building directly across the parking lot from us on Henry Street. And others have built across the street down the way. So this area has been transformed largely because of this space. You were here first. You were the first people to come in to mark a very important occasion for your society. Now we're at a crossroads in this city. The mayor held a conference yesterday and the day before about racism in this city. And it's not just Aboriginal, it's everybody who is different, whether it's in their faith, whether it's the way they speak, the color of their skin, the way they dress. It happens. And it happens largely through ignorance. And you can only overcome ignorance We open our minds to one another, to be welcoming, and it doesn't take an organization to do it. It takes one person. Because one person who is kind and generous and open-minded can break down more barriers than you can think. One kindness to one individual, given unknowingly, will have a big impact. I'll use one example. When I first went to military college as a young fellow, I was 16 years old. When I was 19, I was in my third year at university, and a young fellow from my home area came to the college. And it was completely new and foreign to him, the discipline that was imposed on him, particularly as a recruit, because there was an indoctrination that he had to go through. Because he was from my area, I wanted to know who he was, so I went over and I visited him in his room, and I asked him how he was doing. He said, I'm having a tough time. I said, well, don't worry about this part. It'll be over in a couple of weeks, and it'll work out well. Well, he persevered those couple of weeks, and I didn't think anything about it. Some years later, I was the chair of the board of directors of the St. Boniface Hospital. And we had an event, and this fellow was there because he was working with one of the organizations we were part of the St. Boniface Hospital. And he got up to speak, and he remembered this incident, and he said, if I had not said that, he was going to leave the college. And because he stayed on, he got his degree, he went on to law, and he went on to get involved in the good works of the group that he was working with. And all it took was a couple of words from me to have him stay. I didn't know that. But that's the effect that you can have as an individual on people around you. And I encourage you, in the interest of peace and harmony, maybe to extend a hand of friendship and an open-mindedness to your friends in this city. And that's what our philosophy was when you came into this building. And we've been great friends ever since. And one of your biggest friends is Marilyn Bartlett, who's been here since 8:30 this morning, or 8 o'clock this morning, to make sure the space was open for you, helping you with your coffee and tea and everything else. And this lady is the general manager for this whole space. Not only this space, but the buildings that we built. She manages them all, and the programs that are in here. It's about a $25 million operation with about $10 million of salary going out. She's got big responsibilities, but she's here acting like your concierge because she wants you to be comfortable, wants you to have a good day today. And if you get a chance, say thank you to her. I really don't have much else to say. I want to thank you for making your schedule flexible to hear me. I do apologize. I've done this every year in the past 23 years, I think, is to say I'm sorry I have to leave. But I live in Selkirk. I don't live in Winnipeg. And I come here to do whatever I do with regard to the center. And I squeeze it into my schedule. And I'm retired. I don't have a job to do. I just come here because I like the people that are here. I like you guys. I think you're just absolutely marvelous that you can come. And there's one fellow I want to recognize, and that's the conductor of the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, Dr. Gupta. He was on the board of directors when I was there, and I can remember this one occasion, well, two. He hosted us in his home, beautiful evening, and as part of his generosity, he got up and he conducted the orchestra at a fundraising event. I thought it was absolutely marvelous and very brave. So.
Thank you.
Again, thank you very much for your time listening today.
Thanks a lot, David. Thanks a lot, Terry. Being over here and support us. Next person in the panel, it doesn't need any introduction for us. Especially for our community. His work in himself and his everything in the company and beyond. Probably work with that. He's a leader in the community, a champion of eye health and generous human promise. Mr. Jai Gupta and Dr. Chandra Gupta is one of my top medical funders have made substantial donation to numerous organizations, which includes the University of Winnipeg, which is Gupta Faculty of Kinesiology and Applied Health, Canadian National Institute of Science, Hindu Society of Manitoba, Vedanta Society of Winnipeg, and numerous other organizations. Dr. Gupta has performed almost 50,000 successful cataract surgeries and provided treatment to more than 500,000 Manitobans during his career. In recognition to his contribution to the community and his service to his patients and the medical community, Dr. Gupta received the 2013 Lieutenant Government Eye Care Award. He was awarded the prestigious Physician of the Year award by his peers in 2011, and also received the Queen's Daniel Jubilee Award in 2012. He is the founding president of the Association of Asian Physicians and has participated in annual eye camps in India, providing those in need with free surgeries and classes. The Guptas have established numerous scholarships in our community to support academic and athletic talents. So, like I said, he doesn't need an introduction for us. He's our community leader. He's a person that we are always looking forward to. And without him, without society, we don't do what he achieved so. So please give him a hand from David.
I think I can speak loud too. My wife and I take great pride in the 3rd anniversary of the installation of the bust of Swami Vivekananda here in Winnipeg. Though I was aware of Swami Vivekananda's teaching and philosophy while I was growing up in India, but I learned much more about it from my father-in-law, as he was a strong believer and followed this great Swami's principle. I'm sure our future generations will be proud of their heritage and learn from the teachings of Swami Vivekananda. Much has been said and more will be said about Swami's effect, and I won't deliberate on that. And just my remarks will be that we are happy to be part of the celebration. The great Mahatma Gandhi wrote, "My homage and respect to the very revered memory of Swami Vivekananda. After having gone through his works, the love I had for my country became 1,000-fold. That is the great impact he had, even in the great soul like him. The Smithsonian Institute has historically recorded Swami Vivekananda's arrival in America in 1893 as not only an historical event, but also an arrival of one of the top 10 personalities in 400 years after Columbus. A leading contributor who to provide vision and leadership in the development of America in social, physical, political, and spiritual fields. Thanks again for allowing me to be part.